because of timing. So we are willing to do those things, but our concerns are that, like Mr. Jackson was saying, the number of vendors, that's there, we would have to have a full staff go out if it is not considered a city-sponsored event, which is totally fine. That is our job, and that is something that we're willing to do. But like Ms. Bowen was saying, there is a cost for that because each vendor would have to be inspected if they don't have a permit already in the state of Georgia. For the vendors that do have a permit in the state of Georgia, we do allow vendors that aren't permitted in Richmond County to come to Richmond County if they have authorization. So that means that they're in good standing with their base of operation county. And they let us know beforehand where they want to set up, and they get their business license and all that. So that is a bit simpler process, but my understanding is Foodies, like Ms. Bowen was saying, has a lot of vendors coming from other places, and they may have permits in those places, but they may not. And there's no real way for us to check on that unless they're permitted in the city, the state of Georgia. So if it's not considered city sponsored, then the team would go out, we would do inspections on each vendor, and I'm not sure exactly how long the festival is, but if it's longer than 2 days, it would be $150 a vendor. And if it's considered city sponsored, then if we're asked, we go out and we provide education to the vendors that are there, but there's no proof of compliance with that. It's more just us going out and saying, okay, make sure you wash your hands, make sure you're holding your food at the correct temperature and things like that. But there are limits to that, and there's no proof of compliance. So I really would have to rely on whatever the city of Augusta feels is necessary for this. And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. I just want to underscore the point that the majority of vendors are expected to be out of state. Is that correct, Ms. Bowen?
I believe so. Can I call on that? Who last year she received this timesheet of vendors that were present last year. You can ask Kathy if you can just by memory call that the majority of them really are out of the state of Georgia.
Okay. All right. So
Yes.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, several of them were out of the state of Georgia. The list that we were originally provided, we found out that several more were on there that we were not aware of due to being out of state.
Thank you for that. So I'm going to open up the floor to Augusta government staff to kind of just weigh in things that you've heard, what concerns you have, things you'd like to see, whether or not we, make this a city-sponsored event or not. I'll open up the floor.
Yeah, so I guess I'll jump right in there. I sent out a email, the list of unnecessary concern, the comments from risk management. One thing I think is a really good idea to kind of undertake. It definitely will bring resources and spotlight to the city, and then build tourism. I think that's the direction that we want to kind of go. As we kind of talk, as the health environmental rep kind of was speaking, part of that, she think that she has a good plan, but part of that awareness or environmental health piece to it is that we have to kind of look at even though masks is not stated as a mandated Georgia, also we'll maybe having something available, masks available, or hand washing stations available. And also part of that is our new initiative for the city, and making sure that we have ADAs available, and also guts cans. I think that's very good to pronounce it. And so make sure we have those available just in case for emergency. And the last thing I want to kind of touch on is, we have to have, I know me and Mr. Jackson, we talked about public disruption. We got to make sure that we have a way to monitor on a constant basis. I'm not sure, partner with whatever law enforcement agency to kind of make sure that we're on top of public intoxication, unruly behavior, and how do we actually address those things. So, yes, ma'am.
The sheriff's department actually has given the number of
I do.
And so they have that's what they work progress so long time ago. So this just a actually and applicants for their approved traffic plan, which will be shared with the department, and for nothing on call, but we will be sharing the approved traffic full plan with you as well. So I do believe that the things that Ms. Rogers was talking about public disruption. I think that those things that our sheriff department, our fire department, both in our engineering department, which is the police traffic consultant, are certainly in play and can be discussed further if they are happening.
Okay.
That's how they I mean, certainly, come to the festival, and then be able that they will not be refusing alcohol.
And the traffic control plan is that piece to it, the overall law enforcement. I think that we probably got a really good handle on that. But I know that recently me and Mr. Jackson have kind of worked on, disruptive behavior policy when it comes to, citizens being disrupted at a city event. And so I think that that's probably something that between the law officers and myself and Mr. Jackson and whoever else want to be involved with that, we really need to kind of sit down and seriously discuss, what are the city's actions when it comes to disrupting patrons of this event. Also, disruptive behavior when it comes to city staff. We got to make sure that how those two entities interact with each other, and that is my point.
Okay. But we also offer for information that this festival does follow the official event guidelines on the Resident Parks, and also the traffic and engineering as far as naming the city as an additional insurer. So last year they did over their certificate of insurance, naming the city as an additional insurer. I feel like that might have been about $1 million. I can't say that for sure. We have to look back at it and double check that both traffic and engineering and the Record Parks Department did receive copies of their COI naming the city as an insurer.
I want
to. If you can. I just would like to take a look at what was insured last year. So if you can, kind of forward it to me, so I can take a look at it and make sure that just take a look at it. That's all. Thank you.
So I want to switch gears to the fire department and allow them to make some comments as well.
Well, good morning, Ms. Jennifer. It's certainly a pleasure to see you all. I apologize because I'm traveling out of county for an external meeting. However, really excited about partnering with you in this fashion and to make this event successful. If I'm understanding correctly, the question is whether or not this event is a city event or otherwise. Speaking specifically for fire and piggybacking a little bit off of Ms. Jasmine's comments, our job, whether or not, is to ensure state regulatory compliance. The state of Georgia set forth the standards in the state amendments as it relates to food trucks. And so we would have our inspection regardless. What is important is that we put a plan in place to ensure that it's a smooth transition. We'll make sure and ensure that our team is available to do those inspections ahead of the event so that can go smoothly.
So Chief, just to follow back with DPH, or do you have a recommendation in terms of not allowing the inspections by having courtesy inspections by DPH staff? Do you have a recommendation either way?
As far as DPH is concerned, I mean, they're responsible for that regulatory compliance.
Okay.
But as it relates to fire and the inspection of those trucks, that will need to take place regardless.
Okay.
So that we can ensure that we're in regulatory compliance.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. And from the planning department?
Yes, as Chief Burton says, I mean, the city ordinance requires that each of the vendors would have to have a local business license. We are working on a single event festival license that's going before the Public Services Committee meeting next Tuesday. It should be approved by the Augusta Commission on October 1st. That single event festival license would be a $50 fee. So regardless of whether it becomes a city event or it's not, the business license will still be required by all the participants.
And from a food inspection standpoint, does the planning department have a recommendation either way?
Well, for the food, again, that's going to be the health department's requirement.
Yeah, I understand that, but the goal of this meeting was to allow stakeholders to be aware of that and also maybe provide some recommendations or feedback on that issue.
Well, I would think it would be advantageous for the event to have it become a city-sponsored event. But if indeed it doesn't become a city-sponsored event, in order for us to issue that temporary license or that festival license, we would have to have something from the health department showing that it has met the requirements.
I asked a logistical question then, because I think that may be very pertinent. These trucks, as we talked about, are not within our county. They're not in our county or our city. They're actually participating in other festivals around the region, and they would not be available for the public health inspection until the event date, which then may mean that their business license is not awarded or granted until the event date. Do I understand that clearly? If it is not a city-sponsored event and requires the Department of Public Health to do individual inspections, then that also is a contingency on them receiving their business license.
It is, what we normally do is to make sure that we have all of the departments that are involved, such as health department, fire department, any entity that would need to be able to have something from that business would have to have something from. We would need to have all of those documents before we would proceed with the business license. So we could work with each one of the departments. For example, if the fire department had to do their inspection on the day of, we can have our inspectors involved to make sure that once they receive that approval, we can proceed with issuing the license.
So I know that Chief Perkins and Jermaine Jennings have been in our planning meeting, and it is they really want to happen, and I believe we may have communicated this already to the meeting, that each truck will report to fire headquarters Friday morning, which is November 7th, is that right? No, I'm sorry, November 1st, Friday, November 1st, each food truck will, or food procurer, actually, all right, will report to fire headquarters between the hours of 9 and 11, where they will be inspected. And the fire department will have their paperwork actually in advance because of the business license.
I can't understand what she's saying.
That we are saying needs to be all paperwork for business license applications needs to be turned in by October 4th. So the idea is that you turn in your business license application by October 4th. Fire department will receive that information as part of the application. And then on Friday, November 1st, we do the inspection between 9 and 11 at the fire department.
Yes, and we will have our inspectors out there the same time the fire department is out there, so they can communicate with each other, and we can approve the licenses, on spot if we need to, having our inspectors there. So once we receive the fire department's approval, the inspectors can be on site to complete the rest of the application process. But they would still have to come to our office or pay online to make the payment.
Can't come to your office. That's a logistical obstacle. Things that we want to try to be as customer friendly to these out of town vendors as possible, while maintaining
Miss Bowen, your volume seems very muffled. I could hardly hear what you're saying. I apologize.
I'm sorry, I do have trouble with the microphone in my computer. I just said that thinking about just customer service friendliness, we really want these food truck operators to be able to hear as much paperwork and payment in advance as possible. And we probably is to ask our food trucks to go to the fire department headquarters between 9 and 11, adding an additional step because they will become a business license also on that day in order to finalize their license permit or to pay their fee is a logistical obstacle for this type of but I'm asking for the thought and consideration of that. I think all that I am saying points to that if you would make it the city designated event, that alleviates more footwork, possibly more paperwork, if everyone is in agreement that the department of health courtesy inspections are sufficient for this event.
I'd like to add a couple of things. Like Kathy was saying, or similar to what Kathy was saying, if it's not considered a city-sponsored event, we will have to have the organizer application and each vendor application beforehand. And in this food code, it says 30 days beforehand. And I know that might be pushing it with it coming up. We would accept it around 2 weeks beforehand, but we would have to have all of that documentation, a vendor list, and really the fee should be paid before that too, as far as our end goes. Now those fees don't necessarily have to be paid in person. I'm not sure if business license is the same way, but for DPH it doesn't necessarily have to be paid in person, but those fees would have to be paid first. One other thing, so with the courtesy inspections or courtesy walkthroughs, last year, the reason that it didn't happen is because there was a very specific time frame that Department of Public Health was asked to go out, and we were unable to go out at that time, but we were willing to go out at other times, but were asked not to. So if the city of Augusta wants us to do those courtesy inspections, we're willing to do that, but the organizer will have to be okay, with us going out whenever, we're able to, especially with the amount of vendors that'll be there. It'll probably take a while, even just to even just to speak to each vendor. So those are 2 points that I did want to make, whether it's
Miss Anderson, you went out for a few seconds. We lost you. Miss Anderson?
I'm sorry, can you hear me? I'm having connection issues.
Yeah, you went out for about 15 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, so yes, so if it's a city-sponsored event, there are things that go with it. And if it's not city-sponsored and the city of Augusta is requesting that we do those courtesy walkthroughs, the organizer will kind of just have to be okay with us going out at the beginning of the event. Whether that be, I'm not sure what day it starts, but if it's Thursday night or Friday morning or even Friday during the day. The reason that we were asked to not go out last time is because, there was going to be a lot of people there. They didn't say we were going to be in the way, but, basically we were going to be in the middle of everything, and they wanted their vendors to be able to stay in control, of the situation, and we understood that. And since it was a courtesy, we did not go out because we were asked not to if it wasn't during that specific time. So I guess I would just after we decide if it's a city-sponsored event or a not city-sponsored event, those things need to be taken into account. And we can talk with the organizer if it's considered not city-sponsored. We can talk with the organizer about times that DPH would be available for those courtesy walkthroughs.
Okay. So,
Mr. Dixon, I'll also add, so we've talked about the fire's actionable plan to ensure that we have a smooth transition as it relates to this. I'll offer, during that same time frame, perhaps we could, all departments come together and hold those inspections at one time together, that may help facilitate a smooth transition.
is there a consensus from the participants about that? That's a good idea. I just want to get a consensus about that.
I think it's also a good idea to do that, just to get it all out of the way at one time.
Yes, I would agree that, trying to coordinate all that at one time would be the most advantageous.
Okay, do we have the law department still on the call? Ms. McLean or Attorney Miller? Because I really wanted to get their final recommendation or consensus on this before we move forward. Because to me, I think there's a liability issue at stake when you're talking about this many vendors, and then if something were to occur, who's responsible? Did we go through the right protocol? Did we build consensus among all the stakeholders? That is really my greatest concern, and that's why I was hoping that we had the law department on the call. I'll circle back with them, and then give you all an update, because that's really where I wanted to end the meeting with their final recommendation after hearing all the stakeholders. If you'll give me a second, I'll try